Hello, and from the PRMG news desk, we're pleased to present your first-time home buyer roadmap.
Buying a home can seem like an overwhelming task, but it doesn't have to be when working with us. Today, we're going to walk you through every step of the home buying process.
By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what to do and what to avoid, and how to move confidently toward closing on your first home.
We're going to discuss why do you want to buy? How long do you plan on staying in that home? Are your finances stable? Do you have money saved for down payment, closing costs, and even an emergency fund? Home ownership isn't just about qualifying for a mortgage. It's about being financially and personally ready.
Having things such as a stable income, some savings. Although with first-time homebuyers, we have plenty of situations where first-time homebuyers don't need any savings because we have down payment assistance and we can also obtain closing cost credits from the seller. So if you don't have money and you're a first-time homebuyer, it may not be an obstacle at all. You must have long-term plans of what you want to accomplish with real estate, and you must get comfortable with what your monthly mortgage payment would be. So now it's time to understand your credit and your finances. Before you shop for a home, it's a good idea to review your credit score, looking for any errors that might be on your credit report that may cause a lender to look down on your application. Things happen all the time that get reported incorrectly, so it's nice to catch those early in the process. You want to make sure that you're always paying your bills on time because your credit's very important when it comes to getting qualified to purchase your first home. You definitely, once you begin the process, don't want to add any new debt to your monthly obligations because your pre-approval for your home will be based on what is known at the time you get pre-approved. And if you leave the pre-approval appointment and lease a new Porsche with a large payment, that's going to likely impact what you can afford for a home. And it's definitely helpful if you're saving for, a little cushion, saving a cushion so you've got a little bit of money on hand when you're purchasing your home. There are definitely mistakes that people make when they're in the process of looking for their first home. For example, opening any new credit once you begin the process is not usually a good idea. A real no-no would be going out and, as I just mentioned, possibly shopping for a new car once you get rolling with the process. And then another roadblock to potentially be aware of is undocumentable deposits into your bank account. So it's important that as you prepare to purchase a home, all of your records are in order and you can document all of the transactions that pass through your bank account. So now it's time to begin the pre-approval process. So to get pre-approved, we need to look at some documents. We need to take a look at your income documentation. We need to look at your assets, i.e. your bank statements. We need to look at your credit, and we need to calculate your debt to income ratio. Your debt to income ratio is the percentage of your monthly income that is obligated to ongoing expenses. We need to understand what it currently is, and we need to see if there's room to add what you want to purchase for a home to that ratio. The pre-approval, we're going to ask you for documents such as your pay stubs and W-2 forms. If you are self-employed, we'll want to look at your last 2 years federal tax returns. We don't need state tax returns. We always need to look at your bank statements to see the type of transactions that go in and out of your statements on a monthly basis. And we also need to identify you. So we've got to have your government identification.
Great. And once John finishes with that, we'll move on to the next step, a home search for you. I'll create a custom home search for you. We'll discuss your desired location, your budget, and your commute, school districts, and the must-haves and the must-not-haves. We're going to exercise and create 3 lists: the must-haves, the nice-to-have, and the deal breakers. The next step would be touring homes. What you should pay attention to is the condition of the property, the roof and major systems, the neighborhood, the real resale value, future maintenance cost. Don't judge solely by decor. Next, we will make an offer. I will explain the purchase price, earnest money deposits, contingencies, and negotiations. The highest offer does not always win. It's based on terms. Terms like, will I have a home inspection? Will I make my property subject to mortgage appraisal? Will I have a mortgage appraisal gap? Will I allow a leniency in the home inspection? For instance, oftentimes buyers will say, I will not negotiate any issues under $3,000. And that makes your offer stronger and more likely for the seller to accept.
So now you got the good news that your offer was accepted. So you'll enter into an actual purchase and sales agreement for the purchase of the property, which will spell out all of the terms of the transaction. It'll have the purchase price. It will have how much you're going to borrow. It will have a mortgage contingency date if you're financing, meaning a date that you must have your mortgage approved by so the seller can feel confident that they'll be able to pack up and move out in time for your closing day. Once you get this contract fully executed, we begin the process of processing it with our underwriting team, where we go through and collect, again, all of your documentation. We may have pre-approved you a couple of months ago, and then you began shopping, so your pay stubs might not be up to date, so we'll get updated documents. We'll talk about the interest rate. Do you want to lock the interest rate as soon as you have the home under contract, or do you maybe want to float with the market and see if things might get a little bit better before closing day? So those are options that we have to discuss and that you have to decide. Then we'll get rolling the appraisal. We've got to send an appraiser out to take a look at the home and write a report on what the value is. Because if you're going to pay $450,000 for a home and it's only worth $375,000, that will be a little bit of a problem. So we want to make sure that what you have agreed to pay is actually what an appraiser can support as the current fair market value.
Great. While John is processing your loan, we together will start with your inspections. Depending on the home, you may need just a structural inspection, or in more rural communities, you might need a well inspection for flow and quality of water, as well as a septic inspection. So that is variable depending on the house. We'll select a qualified home inspector of your choice. He will take us through the property and identify not only the concerns that he's addressing today, but future maintenance. So when you leave this home inspection, you'll know years 1 through 3, I should work on this issue. Years 5 through 10, I might have to plan for a future issue, like perhaps a roof or a new kitchen someday. We will then have the opportunity to negotiate any home repairs or inspection credits. Some sellers like to give credits for inspections. Some like to do the work themselves. Some home buyers are handier than others and would like to accept the property for a lower price and take on those challenges.
Now that things are underway, everything is moving towards your closing date. We get your file, all of the documentation collected. We get it in front of the underwriter and we say, here's everything all updated. This is the package that we think we should be able to approve so we can put these people into their first home. And again, if we had pre-approved you a couple of months ago, it took you a little while to find a home, we'll get updated documents. If you are one of the fortunate people that comes in, gets pre-approved, and the first house you look at is perfect, you make an offer, you get it under contract, well then all of your documentation is up to date. We don't need anything new. There are some important things to think about when you're in the process of buying a home. We touched a little bit on it, but just as a reminder, once you start the home buying process, please do not get into any new debt. So once you are pre-approved, you should maintain the status quo with your obligations where they are through the point of closing on your home.
And that includes companies like furniture companies who advertise no interest, no payments till next year. It will still show up on your credit report. We've had a couple of customers who have gone out and bought an entire house of furniture just before the closing, and that becomes a major issue.
It becomes a major issue if you're tightly qualified, whereas your capacity is for a, say, $2,700 monthly payment, and that's the most you could have. coupled with your existing debt, and all of a sudden you now have an obligation for furniture that's $300 a month. That can, and it has, unfortunately, unwound transactions at the last minute.
So do your shopping, but don't give anybody your social security number. Once the property is closed, go out there and spend away on all the home furnishings you want.
The day, as soon as you close, you're free to do whatever you want, but it's up until closing, maintain the status quo. Another important one to think about is job changes. While I'm not going to say it's absolutely impossible to switch jobs in the middle of buying a home, it makes things very complicated. So if you can, try not to do it, but we understand sometimes things happen. You might have the best job of your life presented to you after you already get a home under contract. And in a case like that, we very likely could make it all work, but it just does give us a few obstacles or roadblocks that we have to overcome, and it may cause a few bumps in the transaction. So not changing jobs is always the best. And then another important one is, please don't get lax with your monthly payments, because we've evaluated your credit at the point of pre-approval, and I'm sure things were great at that point, but then sometimes people get busy with the process of purchasing a home and they forget some important obligations. And if you have something pop up with a late mark before we go to close, because we do have to check your credit again right before closing to make sure nothing negative has occurred, it could give us a problem. So make sure you're very on top of all of your monthly obligations and everything continues to be paid on time. So now the next item is, we've gone through all the underwriting, we've gotten everything approved, and we're getting to the closing day. So John, the closing day is the big day. John, what happens on the closing day?
So on the closing day, besides celebrating, we're going to take a final walkthrough of your property to make sure that the property is in the same or better condition from when we last saw it, that no damages have occurred when the seller has moved out, and that every item, such as appliances and such, remain intact. Once we do the final walkthrough, we're going to head over to the closing. Prior to the closing, I will have instructed you to transfer utilities into your name to avoid any interruption of service as well.
So you show up at the settlement agent's office, and all of the loan documents are there for signing. Today we have options for a lot of those to be electronically signed to speed things up before getting there. And then there's just really a few key documents that must always be signed, what we call wet signing with a pen. And at that point, you will receive your keys once everything is signed.
That's awesome.
Right? Which is the most exciting thing that could ever happen.
Now, John, we got to the closing, but tell us about some other first-time home buyer programs that these buyers out there might be interested in and qualified for.
Sure. What we do as part of the pre-approval process is we evaluate your specific circumstances so we can understand which program might make the most sense for you. So, for example, if you were active duty military, you could be qualified for a VA loan with absolutely no down payment, because the Veterans Administration allows veterans to purchase with 100% financing. If you have stellar credit and good resources, savings and things, and maybe not even savings if you're a first-time home buyer, because again, down payment assistance could be available. We have what's called conventional loans. Conventional loans are typically considered the loans for the highest credit qualified buyers. And we certainly have a lot of options with conventional loans. For people who may have had some dings on their credit, or they need to spend a higher percentage of their income than what a conventional loan might consider to be an approvable percentage of your income, we have the FHA, Federal Housing Administration, which has very relaxed approval standards to help people with some dings on their credit get into a home. So still very good programs. And then in rural areas, we have USDA financing available as well, which also can provide 100% financing. So a lot of different options, and each prospective buyer's situations are unique. And usually, in the pre-approval process, we're able to identify which program of all of the available programs makes the most sense.
Great. Some first-time homebuyer mistakes can be shopping before you've gotten a pre-approval. You might be actively looking too low or too high for what you're actually qualified for. You may determine after you meet with John that you want a 2-family or a 3-family rather than a single family. All of these things make a difference in how we're shopping. Don't make any major purchases, as John indicated before, and don't drain your savings for the down payment, and don't ignore closing costs, and falling in love with a home before knowing the budget. I've often had people call me, they drive by a house, they fall in love with it, we look it up, maybe $50,000 more than they can spend, and so it's a disappointment. So let's start the process correctly by getting a pre-approval first and foremost. If you're thinking about buying your first home next week or next year, it's not too soon to start planning. Give us a call and we'll put you on the right track. We have several hundreds of satisfied clients over the years, and they call us the dynamic duo of real estate.
It's just important to remember that you really can't prepare too early to purchase your first home, because if you get ready, you want to purchase a home and you haven't done any calculations in advance, it may be a little bit of a rocky process to get things all set and approved. So I certainly recommend, earlier than you might think, reaching out to have a pre-approval so you understand what your budget would be on a home and what we may be able to approve you for. Monthly mortgage payment may be more than you want to spend. So you really have to understand your own finances, how much money you'll have available after you live life. You want to go out to dinner, you might want to go on vacations, whatever it is. We don't look at those expenses. We look at ongoing obligations, monthly payments on cars, monthly payments on student loans, monthly payments on credit cards, things like that. If you owe alimony and child support, that's also taken into account. So it's always important to understand what you could be approved for, but then not purchase a home that will make you not have enough money to live life or leave you with not enough money to live life. We'd like to thank you for watching this video. And John and I have been doing this a very long time. And, we would certainly love to help you on your home ownership journey. And you can reach out to either of us. And we also have a downloadable guide for first-time home buyers that in the description below, you can click the link and download our guide.
Click that link.
And we'll look forward to hearing from you and certainly be very happy to help you on your home buying journey.